Today we're going to make a rainbow tutu. So you'll need some elastic. You can get this at fabric shops. I like the kind of wide stuff. It's about 1/2 centimeter wide. Some scissors. These ones are fabric ones because they make cutting fabric easier. And a ton of tulle? I don't know how you say the name of this material, but tutu fabric in all of the colors that you want. I'm doing rainbow, so I've got rainbow colors minus one of the purples. So the first thing you need to do is cut your elastic to size, and I don't measure it, I just hold it around my waist and figure out where to cut. And you don't want to make it too tight, but you don't want to make it so loose that your tutu is going to fall down, but you can adjust it later on anyway. So once you figure out how big you want it, snip it off and tie the two ends together so you have a loop. Don't tie that knot too tightly just yet. It's better to make the whole tutu and then put it on and see if you need to adjust that knot and make it tighter or loosen it up a bit. So this is the waistband of your tutu. Then we're going to start cutting our fabric into strips. So I like my strips to be about 5 inches wide. The material I'm using is quite soft, so 5 inches works really well. If you've got a thicker material, then you might want to go a bit smaller. You might want 3 or 4 inches so that it doesn't look too blocky when it's finished. So I'm just cutting the fabric all the way along. This goes a lot quicker if you fold the fabric first, so you're not trying to cut all the way along in a 5-inch strip. You only need to do a smaller cut because you folded it. And then we're going to cut that strip shorter. So I like mine to be about 20 inches long, and they'll be folded in half once they're on the tutu. So that's about 10 inches. But remember, it bunches up as well once it's on the tutu. But I find that if you go much longer than 20 inches, then it doesn't get that nice fluffy kind of look to it. They start to hang down a bit, you know, gravity does its thing. So now that we've got some strips, it's time to attach them to the elastic. So take your strip, fold it in half so that you have a loop at one end and the two ends at the other end. Pop your elastic over the top of that loop, and then we're going to thread the two ends through the loop and pull it tight. Your elastic might kind of fold a little bit, so just give your elastic a little tug and it will unfold itself, and the loopy bit will be on the tutu rather than on the elastic. And we're just going to keep doing the same thing all the way around the elastic until it's full. This first batch of strips, it's best not to pull the loop too tight because you might want to move them around a bit. And it's a bit tricky to adjust them if you pull it too tight. And I like to start with just a few strips so that I can guesstimate how many I'm going to need in total. Because it's easier to just cut a ton of strips and then attach them all instead of having to keep stopping and cutting more strips and putting them on. And then stopping and cutting and putting them on. And because I'm doing multiple colors in sections, I'm cutting the same amount of strips and attaching them for each section so that I don't end up with any one color being too large compared to the other ones. Once you've made a few of these tutus, you'll get a rough idea for how many strips you need for each color, and then, you know, it's much faster. The tighter you make the loops at the top, the more strips you're going to be able to fit on, because basically we're just trying to cover the whole elastic so that we don't see any of it and we have a nice big puffy skirt. So if you leave the loops quite loose, then they'll take up much more of the elastic than if you tighten them up. But I like to have a really nice big fluffy tutu, so once my elastic is full, I tighten up those knots so that I can squeeze in a couple of extra strips. Once you've got almost all of the strips on, that's a really good time to check it for size. Just pop it on, see if it's too loose, too tight. Mine was a bit too loose, so I ended up tightening it up a little bit. And if you do make it smaller, you can trim off the extra elastic that you've got after the knot if you want to. But I find that it's not very noticeable, so I prefer to leave it on there just in case, you know, someone wants to borrow my tutu and they're larger than me and you can just kind of adjust it. It depends how often you share your tutus, I guess. If you find that the ends of the strips are too blocky, they look very kind of square and cut off, you could trim them a bit or cut them into irregular shapes or into more petal shapes so that you don't have that harsh edge on them. You generally get that harsher blocky edge if you're using quite a thick material for it. But I'm not going to do that to mine. I really like how the ends look on mine. They don't look too blocky because this is quite a soft fabric. Once you've got all of the strips on, you can leave it like that and they look great like that. But I like to put mine in a plastic shopping bag and tie it up really tight, and it kind of crinkles up all the fabric. If you leave it for a few hours, or if you have time, a few days or a week or something, then it creases up all that fabric and everything just looks really nice and fluffy and crumpled. It just makes it look fluffier. I love fluffy tutus. So that's it, guys. I hope you like your rainbow tutus or whatever color scheme you have gone for. And I will see you next time. Bye, guys.